Alright, what's going on, guys? So, lately I've been thinking a lot about early retirement, and if you're watching this, you're probably a lot like me in that the whole reason you got into being frugal and investing is because the idea of being 40 or 50 years old with complete time freedom just sounds amazing. And honestly, that's kind of been my mindset ever since I graduated college. And for the first couple of years out of school, I was grinding 60 hours a week at my job, I was cutting costs wherever I could, and I also spent those 2 years living with a roommate just to keep the rent costs down. And really, I was just doing whatever I could to maximize that saving to spending ratio. That way, I could invest as much as possible. And now, 2.5 years later, I've built a really solid financial foundation. But lately, I've started to feel kind of burnt out on just saving every penny that I can. And I've noticed that I've had the desire to spend more money just to improve my quality of life. And so I sat down to run my early retirement numbers again just to see how I could fit that spending in with it. And I just realized how far away I still am from that financial independence. And honestly, guys, it just kind of killed my motivation to keep being frugal and investing. Because it just kind of made me feel like, what even is the point of being this disciplined if I'm still going to be working for a long time, anyways? But that kind of got me thinking on why I even want to retire early in the first place. Because I don't hate working, and I feel like I'm always trying to work on some project or work towards another goal. I think it's really more so the stress and the expectations that come with a standard 9 to 5 job. But that's not a problem with work. That's more so just a problem with this corporate version of work that we've all been told to accept. And this realization is what has led me down the Barista FIRE rabbit hole. And really, the more that I think about Barista FIRE, the more appealing it sounds. So, for those of you that don't know, Barista FIRE is basically the idea that instead of fully retiring, you might leave your corporate job and go take on a part time role doing something you may actually enjoy, but still covers a little bit of your bills. So, say you're really into woodworking and home improvement, and you could work part time at Lowe's or Home Depot, which would allow you to make a little bit of money on the side, and the rest of your expenses would be covered by your investment portfolio. And the reason this is so great is twofold. First off, the amount of money that you need invested to retire actually drops dramatically because you're no longer trying to replace 100% of your income. That means that you have way less grinding to do before you actually can experience that financial freedom. And I think the second reason is that something people don't even think about when they talk about retirement is what you're actually going to do once you are retired. I think when a lot of people are stressed about work, they romanticize this idea of never working again, and then they don't even realize that you'll probably get bored out of your mind and just eventually lose your sense of purpose. And achieving Barista FIRE bridges this gap perfectly because you'll still be working, but it'll be in a way that's way more sustainable. It's almost like how people work in parts of Europe and other foreign countries where you work fewer hours and just generally have more work-life balance and time at home, but you still have something to do to earn income. And personally, I think that's the perfect middle ground. Now, let's say, for example, you're 23 and you have a yearly expense of around $40,000, which may cover your rent, food, car payments, and just everything else. So the standard FIRE equation to determine how much you need to retire is typically 25 times whatever your annual expenses are. So in this situation, you would have a FIRE number of around $1 million. Now let's say you're fresh out of college and you get your first job and you're able to save an extra $700 a month that you can invest. And with a 10% average annual return, you'd be looking at hitting your FIRE number roughly by the age of 50. And also, this is kind of assuming that your life would never get more expensive, which isn't really realistic because at some point you'll probably have a mortgage and kids and all the other things that come with growing older. But let's say you decide to scrap the idea of having a traditional FIRE and you go for Barista FIRE instead. Now, we'll continue with the example from earlier. We'll just say you get a job at the local hardware store and you maybe put in 20 to 25 hours a week. I think after taxes, you could probably bring home around $1,500 a month. And on top of that, a lot of these part-time retail and government jobs offer health insurance. So instead of paying maybe $800 a month out of pocket if you did a traditional early retirement, you may only pay $200 through that work benefit. So between the income from the job and the money you're saving on insurance, that's an extra $2,100 per month that you don't need to pull from your investments. So if you've got an extra $25,000 on hand every year, that means you only need to cover around $15,000 with your investments. So when you use that number for the FIRE calculation, that gives you $375,000 that you'll need invested in order to achieve Barista FIRE. And the amount of time needed to hit that number goes from 26 years down to 17. So you're really almost getting a decade of your life back. Not to mention, that's probably an extra decade where you'd be working somewhere where you'd actually have more time freedom and actually be able to enjoy what you do. Now, I'm sure there's some people that are wondering what the point even is of Barista FIRE if you're still going to be working anyways. And honestly, I think the biggest benefit is not the job itself, it's just that mindset shift that it gives you. Because when you're only thinking about traditional FIRE, you're staring down $1 million or $2 million number, and mentally that just feels so far away that it completely kills your motivation, and it starts to just feel like it would be a pipe dream to ever hit it. But when you bring that number down to a few $100,000, it suddenly feels like something that is actually attainable and can be done in a few years' time. And that changes your mentality completely because now you're not thinking like you need to grind for decades. It's more so this idea that you just need to lock in for a few more years and then you can switch to something lower stress that you may actually enjoy. You wouldn't have to stress anymore about the corporate lifestyle in your 9 to 5, and you'd actually have time for side projects and more time for your family and time to rest. And I think another underrated part of Barista FIRE is that if the market crashes, it's not as big of a deal because you're still earning that part-time income, and worst case scenario, you can always just pick up more shifts if you need to earn some extra money that month. Whereas with traditional FIRE, it can be a huge deal if the market crashes because you may eat more and more of your portfolio than you originally intended. So the next time you're getting Sunday scaries and you're just dreading going to work Monday, think about this. Maybe freedom isn't never working again, and maybe it's just working 20 hours a week at a place that you choose, doing something you don't hate, with the financial security to walk away whenever you want. Because Barista FIRE is not really about escaping work itself, it's just about escaping work you hate. The real question isn't really how do I save enough to retire at 35, it's more so what would I do if I didn't need the money? And that's your Barista FIRE job, and you can probably get there way sooner than you think. So drop a comment below on what your Barista FIRE job would be if you could hit that number, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.